Hey everybody, welcome back to Hanging with Hastings and a special edition of Two Dudes in a Basement. We're not doing music this time. We are going to focus on our favorite 5 movies. Now, this might not be the best movies of all time, but it's our individual 5 favorite movies of all time. And I don't know about you, Tommy. Everybody remember Tommy Joyce from our football season? That we're doing a little something different today.
Great to be back.
Yeah, it's great. I don't know about you, but I just love movies. That's probably my second passion next to music is movies.
Yeah.
So trying to pick my 5 favorite was really tough.
It was challenging. I made a list and crossed some out and added some. And again, it's there's some films I think are the best films ever, but I don't necessarily think they're my favorite movies. So it was hard to find that balance, but after a lot of soul searching and a lot of second guessing myself, I came up with what I think are my 5 favorite.
Yeah, I had to go back. I had the same thing. If we were to pick the top 10, I had to take Rocky out. I had to take the original Superman with Christopher Reeve out. The Godfather movies, The Deer Hunter, E.T. Those were all the Burt Reynolds movies that I love. The Hooper and Smokey and the Bandit, Animal House, Stripes. The Blues Brothers, all those movies, I had to say no because we only had 5. Yep. And I picked what I have to go. Scrooge is another one. I watch that every Christmas, but I couldn't put it on the list. I went to all the movies that I go back to once or twice a year at least. Planes, Trains, and Automobiles, another one I couldn't put on the list, but I watch that every Thanksgiving.
These are all films I've seen multiple times.
Me too. Yeah. Every year I watch them, but I couldn't put them on because it had to be the all-time. Yep. So I'm going to have you started off with your number 5. So everybody, Tommy Joyce, your number 5 movie.
My number 5 movie, 1973. The most important story ever told. Jesus Christ Superstar.
Oh,
love the film. Great music. Tim Rice, Andrew Lloyd Webber.
Yeah.
It's a film that again looks at the most important story, in my opinion, of history, and in kind of a new way. And it's got some of that minimalist, vision to it. It's got some great musical performances. Obviously, we used to call it a rock opera back in the day. You've got Ted Neely does an amazing job as Christ. And one element is Mary Magdalene. Her voice was fantastic.
And she went on she sings a song in one of my all-time favorite movies. So that's funny.
I just love that movie. I think that it can really connect people to the story of Christ that ordinarily probably wouldn't have taken the time to do so, because at the time it was very contemporary. And again, I think that Tim Rice's lyrics and Andrew Lloyd Webber, I think it's of all of Andrew Lloyd Webber's musicals, I think it's his finest work.
It still holds up.
It's a movie that still holds up, and I just think it's a film that people can really be affected by in a really powerful way. And again, it's the story of the most important figure in history, in a story that is familiar to everybody, but it presents it in a way that's still new and refreshing.
Right. Well, that's a well, not a shocking one. I can see you with the way you like music. That's a big choice for you. All right. Now I'm going to go with number 5 for me. Is from 1996 in a movie called Beautiful Girls, and this was an ensemble movie with Timothy Hutton, Matt Dillon, Uma Thurman, Rosie O'Donnell, Michael Rappaport. I connected with every single character in this movie. And it's a story about Timothy Hutton living in the big city, and he comes home to his small town for his high school reunion. And he's about 30 years old, and late. I think it would be 28 because it was his 10-year reunion. And he was a dude in flux, so to speak. Mm-hmm. He didn't know where he wanted to go. If he wanted to marry his girlfriend, if he wanted to stay single, he was a piano player, if he wanted to continue playing music, or if he needed to do something else. And he bonded with his hometown friends, and they all had their stories. And I highly recommend it if you've never seen it. It's a great cast.
I have never seen it.
Oh my gosh, it's the dialogue between them all. It just feels so real. It feels like you're almost looking into this personal life of these people for 2 hours. Natalie Portman, it was one of her first roles. She's in it. And Uma, she's fantastic in it. The whole cast. So my number 5, Beautiful Girls. I recommend it highly to everybody. Go see. I watch it at least once a year. It's always my winter movie that I go to.
I'm going to watch it now.
All right, brother. Now, number 4 for time.
Number 4, also from 1973, like Jesus Christ Superstar, good year for movies, is one of the great, if not the greatest action films of all time, starring who I consider to be the greatest action star in film history, Bruce Lee, and it's Enter the Dragon. Oh. And Enter the Dragon is a great film to watch if you're just looking for something exciting and a character. Bruce Lee was just a really commanding screen presence. They talk about people who really commanded the attention of the audience. He did it in a way that I think few actors in history have ever done. And I love the way the film in the beginning builds. And his first few scenes, he's very quiet. He observes. He just watches, and it's like watching a stick of dynamite fuse slowly burning down. You're just waiting for the explosion because you know that once he gets to what he's there to do, it's going to be enjoyable, and it really is. And it was a film that was a new departure for him. He only made 4 films, and the first 3 were Chinese productions, and unfortunately, when you watch them, you see that the limited resources, to say the least, that they're working with, and in a lot of ways they're poor films. Apart from his performances, there's not really a whole lot there to recommend. This is the first film he made with the Hollywood backing, with the Western style production value behind it, and it really shows. He's allowed to be himself, and he choreographed all the fight scenes. He involves some of the best karate masters of his time. Bob Wall was one of them, and he just puts together this great story of a lone man, in kind of a kung fu James Bond type role, going into an island fortress to overthrow a dastardly villain, who's a heroin supplier, and it's just a great movie in terms of characterization. And again, Bruce Lee was in my opinion, an action star like no other. I don't think you've ever seen anything like him. And but it's, when you watch it, there's also a sense of tragedy around it because it was his last film, and actually he passed away before it was released. And so you get the idea that now he had the backing of Hollywood. They're putting him into these roles, and it's that the unfortunate what if scenario. Who knows where he could have gone with this new ability for him to connect with Western audiences and have the bankroll of Hollywood behind him and the kind of films he would have been able to make. And it's unfortunate, but we'll never know because he passed away. So although it's a great film, every time I watch it at least once a year, I'm saddened by it because once again it's just that unrealized potential. Yeah, you wonder what might have come after.
Yeah, exactly. Right. Well, it's funny. Quite a few of my favorite movies are from the 70s too. And it's not that I think that movies nowadays are bad. Yeah. Quite contrary, I enjoy a lot of new movies, but for some reason, maybe it's an age thing with me now. I don't go back and watch them as much.
Right.
Like I'm talking these movies that I'm mentioning here, I watch multiple times, and I'm going to go to my number 4 now, and it's going to kind of be, it's a part of a whole group of movies, but I'm going to put it down 1931 in the original Frankenstein with Boris Karloff. I just think something about all those Universal movies from the 30s, 40s, and early 50s, just the magic. And it was really the first, you talk about the Marvel universe and the DC universe and how all these movies are made. James Bond did it where they're all kind of connected with each other. And this was really the first movie universe where you had Bride of Frankenstein, Son of Frankenstein, House of Frankenstein. There was a Frankenstein meets the Wolfman, was all connected, and it started as the series went on. All the main monsters would kind of meet up and have a monster mash. But there's something about that very first Frankenstein movie and Boris Karloff's portrayal.
Right.
The innocence and the fear and the anger, everything in one. There was, he doesn't speak.
Right.
But he does it all through his facial expressions.
It's an amazing performance. It really is.
Yeah, and he went on, and I put it, the 3 that he was in, I put it almost as one. They were just great. you know, and
the set design, you know, and it's just the castle and, you know, the lightning storm, the way that they just created this world, as you mentioned, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I just loved it. And, you know, Bela Lugosi turned it down because he had just came off Dracula, and he didn't want to wear all the makeup.
Right.
He thought, you know...
And he didn't like the fact that there was no lines.
And then the thing that was ironic about it is he ended up playing the monster.
Yep.
First he's Igor,
yep.
and then he's the monster as the series went on.
Right.
So he ended up, I believe, no, he didn't finish it off as the monster, but he was in...
Frankenstein meets Wolfman.
The Wolfman one, yes. So that's my number 4. And there's just some those the atmosphere.
Yeah, it's
just everything. Those are my Halloween movies. I'm not a fan of the splatter.
Right.
A lot of blood. I like the Hammer ones as well, especially ones from the 50s and early 60s. But I still don't think they compare to the Universal monsters from the early 30s.
And you talk about the atmosphere created. The fact that so many of the outdoor scenes were actually filmed indoors in a sound studio, and I think that it really contributes to this, like almost this magical charm of those movies.
Right. And James Whale is an amazing director. He also directed, I believe, Invisible Man,
right?
And another great movie that from that time period. Yeah. So there you go, the original Frankenstein, my number 4. So now we're on to number 3, and Tommy, give it.
My number 3 film is a film I've been watching endlessly since I was young. And it stars probably the biggest entertainment act of the 20th century. It's the Beatles' 1965 film Help.
Wow, you're going on a lot of music.
Yeah, and Help, it's a film that it has one intention, and that's to provide 90 minutes of pure fun. You know, there's nothing in it to be taken seriously. There's no dramatic, plot points. It's purely a film for escapist fun. You know, it shows the Beatles and all the different locales, that really cool London apartment that I wanted to live in when I was a kid with the sunken beds. And then it moves on to, the Alps, and then it ends in the Bahamas. And it's a madcap, crazy film. But it really showcases what I consider to be, the most underappreciated aspect of the Beatles was they were very funny. Yeah. They were very funny men.
Well, that's what made them the Beatles, was their sense of humor and their think about when they landed in New York, and the reporters say, "What's the gossip is that you're off just 4 Elvises," and Ringo goes, "It's not true."
Yeah. and they had a comic timing that if you talk to any comedians, they'll say that's the most difficult thing to have.
Yeah.
You either have it or you don't. And they had it, and that really comes through in this movie. I think Richard Lester, the director, who had also directed A Hard Day's Night, does a great job of kind of just letting them be themselves and building a film around their personalities, so to speak.
I'm surprised you picked that one, because a lot of people will pick The Hard Day's Night.
And I think The Hard Day's Night technically is a better film. I think that there's no question about that. But
Help's hard to find, too.
Help I think is a really enjoyable film. And I'll be honest with you, I like the music a little better than Hard Day's Night. 65, Lennon McCartney. That's when they started. Right. Lennon and McCartney were just hitting in all cylinders in 65. You're just churning out some of the greatest popular music of the 20th century, and it also contains a great song by George, and I Need You, which is one of my favorite George songs. But you've got the title track, you got Ticket to Ride, you got Hide Your Love Away.
Yeah.
So it just segues from great song.
Hide Your Love Away is probably one of my favorite parts of the movie.
Absolutely, and it's just a film that you can just check your troubles at the door and just take a ride with the Beatles for 90 minutes and just have a really good time living in their kind of, zany world and enjoying some incredible music at the same time.
Well, their music was really starting to become sophisticated at that time. It was right before the Strawberry Fields and Sgt. Pepper and everything. There was definitely a leap from I Want to Hold Your Hand.
Yeah, absolutely.
To that. So number 3, Help. And it is hard to find. I actually just watched it on YouTube.
I have the DVD.
Yeah, see, it's not on any streaming.
Really?
And somebody had uploaded it to YouTube, a really great high definition version of it. I just watched it about a month ago.
Love it also.
Great. So number 3, all right. So my number 3 is a movie I watch every July 4th. as I mentioned, Beautiful Girls was my winter movie. I do every Thanksgiving. I watch Trains, Planes, Automobiles, and every 4th of July I watch my number 3 movie at least once. Sometimes I watch it in the morning and then at night too. Jaws, from 1975. Steven Spielberg's first really big blockbuster. Actually, a lot of people call it the first blockbuster. And being alive when that came out and being a young kid, people were afraid to go to Beaver Island. Yeah. They were afraid to go into the water because of this, much like people were afraid to take a shower after Psycho. And they were having, the stories behind it where they were having trouble with the shark. And so there's a great deal of the movie where they don't use the shark. And Steven Spielberg was brilliant how he would use different things like the music.
The music is
John Williams' score. When you heard it, it just tensed you up.
Right.
And the main thing besides the adventure is the relationship between the 3 leads, Robert Shaw, Roy Scheider, and Richard Dreyfuss. They're just so good together. Yeah. When the movie's good for the first 30 minutes when the shark attacks first happen. Of course, one of the most all-time iconic scenes at the beginning when a girl gets eaten at the very beginning.
That's the way that the attack was suggested without showing the creature was
right. Well, that's another part of it. Yeah. Or when they were throwing the barrels over the boat, and the barrels were basically the shark.
Right.
They did so many things that were just fantastic. But once the 3 guys get on the boat, and it's just about them, I think the acting is just absolutely brilliant. Yeah. All 3 of them, and it's just an amazing movie.
It is.
If you think about it, you're in this small place, very Hitchcockian type of movie too. You're in this just environment. You're just on the boat, even though you're out in the middle of nowhere. But it's just really almost claustrophobic, the ways the 3 of them. But it's still thrilling. Yeah. There isn't a boring minute in the movie. My favorite scene is probably when they're telling the stories.
Yeah.
And and what does Richard Dreyfuss see this right here?
Yeah. And
she broke my heart
when Shaw gets into this recounting the story of the Indianapolis.
Yeah.
It's so powerful.
And he's amazing.
The way he does that scene is just, it just draws you in a way that, few scenes really will do.
You watch that movie and you just realize they don't make them like that anymore. Yeah. Nowadays, again, I like a lot of movies that come out nowadays, but a lot of them, they use the CGI. Mm-hmm. There's just something missing in the human factor that in most of my movies that I love are very human stories. If you look at the Beautiful Girls, would I put 5 and then even 4? I mean, Frankenstein. It's the story of humanity.
Right,
and here in Jaws, this is the story of these three men, completely different, but have this bonding experience. Just a brilliant movie.
And as you mentioned, it's a very important film in movie history because it created the summer blockbuster.
Right.
Before Jaws studios released their important films around the holidays. Mm-hmm. The summertime was considered dead time for theaters. People were out doing other things. It was kind of the age of the drive-in creature features. And Jaws changed that. And the decision to release that movie in the height of the summer, that created this idea. Now it's an entrenched idea of the movies releasing, or studios releasing their big films during the summer.
Got to be in the summertime, the big blockbusters, Yeah, and that's all because of Jaws. So it really is an important movie. And then you think about everything that Steven Spielberg went on to do. Close Encounters right after that. He did, what was the comedy? Remember he made 1941, which I think is underrated.
It is a very underrated film. And John Belushi.
Treat Williams, Dan Aykroyd's in it. They're a great big cast of people. Yeah. So and then he does the Indiana Jones movies.
Right. Yeah.
And he goes on for all the great movies that he's done.
Of course, I don't totally different genre, but Schindler's List, what I would put as one of the best films.
Schindler's List, Saving Private Benjamin. You know, there's
Robert Ryan.
We're not saying anything anyone doesn't know. Right. Steven Spielberg's probably the greatest director. If not, he's in the top 2 or 3 of all time.
Absolutely.
So that's our number 3. We're getting down to the nitty gritty. Number 2.
I'm going to pick the classic Hollywood movie. I know a lot of people love this film. 1941, Casablanca.
Oh.
It's a film that you could watch over and over again. It shows you when Hollywood clicks just how good it is and all the different elements combined. You know, the choreography, the cinematography, you know, the use of the black and white, you know, the shadows, the incredible ensemble cast. You know, you got Claude Rains, Apollo Reed. You got Ingrid Bergman, who looks like she's literally glowing in every scene. A lot of that was due to that kind of soft focus camera work that was popular back then. And then, of course, you know, Humphrey Bogart. You know, his performance there is one of the great in classic performance of film history. You know, it's got everything. It's got fantastic music. It's got song by Hoagy Carmichael, performed by Dooley Wilson. It's got the exotic locale in Morocco, and it's got that great, the classic hero's journey of redemption. The film starts off, and Humphrey Bogart's character, Richard Blaine, he's embittered. You know, he's kind of self-centered and divorced himself from humanity because of what happened in his past. But as the film progresses, he comes to realize there's a lot more to the world than his own feelings and his own experiences. And by the end of the film, he finds redemption by, committing himself to helping the world around him. You know, the Nazis. The film's made during World War II.
Right.
There's no better villains in movie history than Nazis.
Yeah,
right?
and World War II was going on.
And it was
nobody knew how it was going to end.
Exactly. And, he commits himself at the end to, a lifetime of doing everything he could to combat the Nazis. So this great journey of self-discovery during the film. And again, it just does everything right. And it's got all the different elements that create just, again, what we call a movie. It's just Hollywood at its best, in my opinion.
You know, there are a handful of famous movies that as much as I love movies, there are a handful of them that I've never seen. And Top Gun. I've never seen Top Gun. Casablanca, I know the story.
You have to go home and watch it.
You know what? It's on Max, I believe. I believe it's on Max, and I may have to go home tonight and watch that.
In 1991, for the 50th anniversary, they showed it up at the North Park Theater. I went and saw it 2 nights in a row. But it was awesome to be able to see it as represented in the big screen, because again, those old Hollywood films were meant to be to watch on a big screen. I was glad I was able to have that opportunity. Although I've watched it on television, probably 30 to 40 times. I
know the story and I've seen the scenes, and
right.
and that, but I've never watched that movie in whole. And that may be something after I edit this video. That may be what
you'll love it.
I'm going to do tonight. So all right. So now my number 2 is a movie that really changed my life. Came out in 1977. It was my second R-rated movie I ever saw. The first one was A Star Is Born with Barbara Streisand and Kris Kristofferson. And the first time I remember hearing the F word, I was like, you can't say that. Well, this movie may have said that word more than any movie I've ever heard before. And I was a 13-year-old kid and walking around saying that word more than I probably should have after it. But my number 2 movie is John Travolta's Saturday Night Fever. This little low-budget movie that became a phenomenon. Now, I'm not a big disco guy at all.
Although we did take disco lessons when we were in 7th grade.
Well, you had to,
At school, we had to.
And I did have hair back then, too, that it wouldn't move because it was, wind-tested tunnel.
That's right.
Yeah, but just such a great performance. I love Travolta as one of my favorite actors. I loved him at the time. He was Vinnie Barbarino, and he had also was in a TV movie called The Boy in the Plastic Bubble, and he was also in one of my favorite old commercials. I don't know if you remember, he played a kid, and he was talking about going to college. His dad had plans for him, and he goes, the only one thing that he didn't plan on dying, and then it shows him like eating an apple and getting back to work. He's like a factory worker, and he couldn't do the things because his dad didn't have, I think it was an insurance commercial. His dad didn't have insurance. But I remember that commercial, and it was before he was John Travolta. And I mean, I love so many of his movies. I love Grease, and I love Urban Cowboy, and he did a movie. Oh my goodness, 1981 with Brian De Palma. Oh my gosh, it's
Blow Up.
Blow Up.
Yeah.
Blow Up, which or was it Blow Out? Blow Out. It was
Blow
called.
Out. Okay.
Yeah, and just I thought it was really underappreciated. Great movie. And then of course I was all on board when he had his '90s renaissance, when he had Pulp Fiction and Face Off and Get Shorty, and you know, that big Phenomenon. He had a string of great movies in the '90s, and it's kind of sad seeing him now. All of his movies are kind of like with like Bruce Willis, and like his career ended where they're all straight to streaming now or whatever. But in 1977, he just owned the screen. Maybe one of the greatest openings of any movie ever. Just him walking down the street to Staying Alive.
Just draws you in.
And again, another movie where all the characters, I just loved all the character work. I thought the story was kind of ruined by Sylvester Stallone in the sequel, Staying Alive, where he just kind of made it this. I don't even.
Yeah,
it was a PG.
Very disappointing.
Yeah, it was. I did. You know, it was sad to see him take it in that direction, and that was kind of the down period of Travolta's career after that movie. But Saturday Night Fever, Carolyn Gorney played Stephanie. And here's another thing: I love that movie so much. I named my daughter Stephanie after that character. It really wasn't a story. When I say I don't like disco, yes, I had disco. He was a great dancer. But it was basically a story of a young kid that felt trapped, and how was he going to get out and not repeat the sins of his father and his grandparents. You know, where, you know, and there was a great scene in the movie where he quits and he comes back to get his money, and a guy gives him his job back or whatever, and he goes, "You got a great future here. This guy's been with me for 15 years. And John Travolta just looks at him. And they got bad bags, and it's all, and he just looks, and he's like, this is not where I want to be. And it was also a story about maturing. He didn't treat women properly. He didn't show them respect. And the movie probably couldn't be made today because of the scene, the backseat scene with the one girl
and his the latent racism that he grew up in also.
And that's one thing where I fight. Look, I'm all for treating people the right way and stuff, but I think we have to, as a society, we gotta, if you can't tell the truth, then and this was the truth, the way, then what are you doing? You're not telling a real story. And the same thing goes back like television with Archie Bunker, and then they say you couldn't make that show today. Why? It's the truth, and it was it's probably the greatest TV show of all time, or one of top 5. So I just thought it was a great little movie. Yeah. And when I mentioned Boy in the Plastic Bubble, the woman that played his mother, was his girlfriend, and she ended up being the mother. I can't think of her name offhand right now, but she played the mother for the first few episodes of 8 Is Enough. And she had cancer, and she passed away. And on her deathbed, she told John, "You have to do this movie. It's going to change your whole career."
And like you said, unfortunately, as time has passed, it's been kind of confined to the fantastic dancing scenes, which are incredible.
Amazing dancing.
When he takes the floor to "You Should Be Dancing," it just, everybody's heart was just beating harder because it was just so dynamic the way he did that.
And here's the thing, too. You know what makes that scene? And where I think a lot of directors make the mistakes nowadays, because nowadays, if they were to shoot that scene, there'd be like 100 cuts. Right. It'd be all close-ups and everything moving fast. The director just showed him dance. And along, like where you see his whole body there. So, we gotta move on. That's the sound.
And just real quick though, I don't know if everyone out there knows that that dance floor that he dances on was manufactured in Buffalo.
Woo! Well, there you go, there. That's gonna be when I go to New York next time. I actually want to go and see some of the sites from Brooklyn there where it was filmed. You want to turn it off, and we'll so it's not because we still have to.
Alexa, stop.
And then what I'm going to do before we go on to our number ones, we have to say if we would have had, there's so many great movies. Like I said, I love Burt Reynolds movies. Hooper's my favorite.
I'm not quite sure how to help you with that.
Alexa, stop.
See, this is great. This is real life.
Yes.
Hooper's my all-time favorite Burt Reynolds movie, but then you got Longest Yard, you got The Smokey and the Bandit, all those great movies. I love all those. We mentioned Animal House and Blues Brothers and Stripes, all those great movies. Planes, Trains, Automobiles, Scrooge. There's so many great movies. Another great one to watch, I would recommend, is a Bill Murray movie called St. Vincent.
Great film.
Just an amazing movie that you wouldn't expect coming
Great
from just an amazing movie. So that said, if you have any honorable mentions that you want to throw out real quick.
Apocalypse Now, I think is one of the great films ever made, and there's just so many different elements to that film. It's like a class in movie making to watch it. I'd highly recommend that.
Francis Ford Coppola, if he only made 3 movies, he gave us The Godfather 1, 2, and Apocalypse Now. Yeah. Oh boy, what an amazing movie! Again, the Rocky, especially the first Rocky one, movie. Yeah. And then I really did enjoy when he came back. I think it was in 2006 and did Rocky Balboa. I thought that made up for the mess of Rocky 4 and 5 and stuff like that. So anyway, let's move on now to number 1 for Tommy.
My favorite movie of all time is one that I'm sure a lot of people are very familiar with. It's a movie that, even if you've never seen it, which I think just about everybody has, you know it at least. The lines are iconic. The story is, famous. And it's just a film that, people will watch over and over again, particularly around the Christmas time. And It's a Wonderful Life.
Well, I'm going to have to stop you right now because that is also my number 1.
Well, I'll give you my.
We can go back and forth on it here for a second.
It's just a film that it's just, again, you talk about a character study.
This is why we're friends.
Yeah, no one ever did the everyman American experience way Jimmy Stewart did. It's hard to relate to Cary Grant. It's hard to relate to John Wayne. Every man could relate to Jimmy Stewart.
And Frank Capra.
The Capra he weaves a story here that it's a man who questions his life as he lives it without noticing what he's affecting and how he's impacting the world around him. I think that everybody can relate to that. Right. Especially as you get older, that question that he grapples with is, what have I done to make my life worth it? What have I done to make all this I've done and the difficulties I've faced worth it? And I think everyone can relate to that, especially as they get older. Right. And at the end, the payoff is, the success in life is not measured by money or material possessions. Success in life is measured by your positive effect on the lives of people around you.
Your family,
your friendship. And those are timeless qualities. And the film just does an incredible job of just weaving that story and the characters that come in and out of his life. Really reinforcing the idea of, here's a man who, by some people's judgment, would have lived a small life, but he didn't. And the idea that everyone lives a big life when they have a positive impact on the people around them.
It's a story of what you do, what you not being there, that hole that's in everybody because you didn't exist. Yeah. I've seen that movie at least 50 times. At least 50 times. I have never not cried at the end. Yeah. Just the amazing story when his brother comes in at the end and he says, "Harry."
Yeah,
Harry. And
you gotta love the constant references of Western New York and Buffalo sprinkled throughout the
really film. There was a factory in Buffalo. They talk about Rochester. Yeah. Yes, there's was it, where did the one guy had to get home to? He had to get home to Ithaca.
Yes, I think that was it. Yeah,
I believe it was. This bright young man is getting but there's so many great scenes in the movie, and it wasn't a success originally when it came out.
1946. Yeah.
But I believe it was the first movie that Stewart made after he got out of the war, and there's so much about this movie. Mary,
to
me was the ultimate that's your dream girl. I think every guy,
The epitome of
when you talk about who do you want to marry,
Yep.
is her. That's your dream girl, and she had timeless beauty.
selfless devotion.
But just her
And it's
smile.
interesting. He had to learn what she knew throughout the whole film. I find that
Even
really
as a
interesting.
child.
As even a child, I found it really interesting.
Yeah.
She understood what he took, a lifetime really up to that point to get.
You know the scene where the mother's trying to point him in a direction,
Yep.
and
Such a metaphor.
the uncle
Yeah.
is drunk.
Right.
He's going, oh, he did it.
Yeah.
And then he's off screen. You hear his smash. He tripped. That wasn't supposed to happen.
know that.
And he improvised I'm all right. I'm all right. And that was a genuine laugh from Jimmy Stewart.
And there's another fantastic scene in that where Jimmy Stewart runs close up to the camera,
Oh, and looks at it.
stares at it, and looks each way. And you can imagine how to pull that off, how difficult that
As
was.
Clarence is saying, you see, George?
And just to pull that off, and it's just a masterful performance. And that's the film that I think if people wanted to, what can movies accomplish? What are movies all about? If they had never seen a film before, that's the film I would show them.
I think that's a movie that should be seen nowadays. And the thing that's sad about our life nowadays is it seems more people root for Mr. Potter than root for George nowadays. Something has been lost in our society, I think. And I think it's good to remind ourselves what decency is all about.
Yeah.
And that's what that movie is all about.
Yeah.
And I think people should strive. We're never going to accomplish it, but you strive to try to be George Bailey, not Mr. Potter. You strive to be a George Bailey to make a difference in someone's life. It's just, boy, that's so funny. We both picked the same movie.
We didn't let each other know the movies we were gonna. We wanted to just play off each other, and
that's amazing. But that's just, I think, the greatest movie. We were talking. Maybe our favorites aren't the greatest movies ever made, and that. But I really think that's up there. Is maybe the greatest movie ever made.
I agree.
And when we talked about Rocky, it's that same kind of story. And Frank Capra actually said that was the closest to one of his type of movies,
Really? Yeah.
because the spirit that he captured in that. And it was a shame that Sylvester Stallone couldn't go on to continue. He kind of bastardized that character and all the other stuff that his Rambos and all that he went on with. But that's gonna do it. That's our show. Two Dudes in the Basement hanging with Hastings. We're going to be now. Season 4 is going to be a lot about the Buffalo Bills season, and that's where Tommy's in a lot of those. We're going to try to do 1 or 2 more episodes with Tommy for our season 3.
Get to the Halloween show we've been planning.
Well, that's going to be during the football season too. Yes, we'll have to do that. But I really had fun with this today. I hope you guys enjoyed this episode as well. It's something a little different, a little break from the music. I wanted to spend a little time with my buddy Tom and talk some movies. So this was a lot of fun for me.
I loved it. It was great.
Had a good time. So I'll be back next week with another show music related. But until then, everybody, if you would give me the favor and like and subscribe to the channel, give us a comment below, and hit the bell icon so you can be notified whenever a new video is released. I usually try to make a video once a week or every other week. So hit that bell icon and it will notify you. So with that said, Tom, thanks for doing this.
Great as always. A lot of fun.
I hope you guys enjoyed it. Have a good day, everybody. We'll see you next time.